Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Laura Cummings from White Birch Books, and I'm here today at Sun TV with author Andrew Bridgeman. And he's here celebrating his debut thriller, Fortunate Son, out now at White Birch Books. And we will be hosting the book launch party for Andrew and the book on Saturday, September 28th at 4 p.m. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
I know, it's kind of cool here, right?
It is. It is. I love my bookshelf, too.
Yes, I know. It's much cleaner than anything I would have.
Yeah.
So first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's very exciting. Let's jump right in. So you're stuck in an elevator and somebody says, hey, what's your book about?
The dreaded elevator pitch.
Yes.
It's funny, as when you're writing your book, you don't think about the fact you're going to have to talk about it eventually. And then when you get the first couple times, so I'll do my best, but
okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not an expert. On my 7th book, I'll be great at it.
Right.
But the book is called Fortunate Son.
Yes.
And it starts 5 days before the presidential inauguration, and the crime of the century, the biggest kidnapping in 100 years, has just been solved. And the FBI come into a 20-something-year-old's office, and they tell him that everything about his life that he thought is a lie, and that his birth mother is actually about to be inaugurated as the Vice President of the United States in 5 days. And he's a shy guy. He doesn't want the spotlight. So instead of embracing this new life, he goes back to Vermont to try to figure out who it was that raised him. Meanwhile, we have Emma Noble, who is in her first day in the FBI, paired with a grizzled FBI agent, and she finds herself in the middle of an impossible situation as we learn that maybe this is not happenstance, that Ben Danvers has been found 5 days before the inauguration, that maybe this is a long-term conspiracy that's been going on for decades, and that some bad people have their sights set on causing some big-time damage. So Ben and Emma have to team up to do some things. So it's I don't want to get too far into it, and hopefully that doesn't spoil anything, but that's the gist.
That is the gist, and that's pretty amazing. So it's like this long-term plot. You've got this young guy. I just love that idea. Hi, Ben. Oh, guess what? Your life's a lie. Take it in stride.
And the poor guy's just not ready for everything that's coming at him. And then I just kind of heaped it on him.
I know.
Somebody that read the book had said, poor Ben needs therapy.
He really does. He really does. And then Emma, talk about first day. She could have been paired with anybody else, but she's paired with this kind of old, non-talking, grizzled guy who this happens to be his, he's got the files. This happens to be his case.
Right.
And so she catches it too. And
it's funny. So this is the first book in an Emma Noble series. So, but it didn't start out that way. Emma was, she was just somebody to talk to my FBI guy.
Okay.
And then she opened her mouth, and then she said really cool things, and she was funny, and she was awkward, but there was something inside her that was really powerful and important, and suddenly the book started becoming a lot more about Emma Noble than anything else. And then when I got to the end, I decided that maybe I wasn't done with her.
Yeah. Well, she's quite the imposing presence too. Isn't she like 6 feet tall or
she's
something?
She's 6 feet tall, and she's a boss, but she's also she's her own person.
Yeah.
She's very fun.
So she's hard to miss. She's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah,
miss.
yeah.
And so so I've been having it's kind of hard to explain this because I'm like I tell people, it's this great thriller. And then I'm like, it's a political thriller. And then they kind of go, oh. And I say, no, it's not like a left or right thriller. It's just like a you know, are we going to save the world kind of thriller. And I said, but it's like a 20 years in the making thriller and everything. And you know, I'm like, just trust me, you cannot go to sleep. You
Yeah.
just have to keep turning the pages kind of thriller. And then they go, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a really hard, well, because everybody kind of in my circle were like, how do we describe this book? And some people said, well, it's a psychological thriller. Some people said it was a political thriller. Some people said it's action adventure. And I guess it's all of those things. You know, when
all of the
yeah,
above.
check all the boxes. But as you're writing, you know, I think it wouldn't have served my enjoyment of the story to be derivative, to try to like it's like this or it's like
Right.
this. So it's really not like too many things that are out there, which in some ways makes it harder to explain what the book is about, but in some ways maybe makes it a more unique reading experience where people go, oh, that was different and I liked it. Hopefully.
We'll just call it a page turner.
Page turner.
Okay.
That works.
Okay, so this complicated plot with the, you know, decades-long conspiracy and everything, basically. So you just kind of thought this up in a day and said, I'm going to write a book.
That's it. It came to me in one block, and I just wrote it on a weekend, and it worked out great.
Like everybody does.
Yeah, yeah. And it came out perfect. There was no edits, nothing. Just easy peasy. Yeah. No, it was about the opposite of that. Everything, it was like, so when I think of the book, I think of it as Frankenstein's monster almost, you know, that it's got bolts, and I wonder if people can see the spackling and, you know, and everything. But when it's finally done, it looks like a normal, book. But it came out in odd ways, and I think sometimes the best thing that can happen is that as when you're writing, you get surprised by a twist or a turn. And I think it was you maybe that said that the best surprises are when the writer is surprised first. And so those surprises happened to me, and so the story was better off for them. And then you have to kind of go back a little bit and make sure that the surprise is well hidden and things, because you don't want a twist that people can see coming a mile away, right? Those are no fun. So,
Right. Yeah, I always picture in a book like this that you're kind of like a mad scientist with your giant whiteboard, and you know, you're kind of at the computer writing, and then you spin around and you've got your board with your lines and your drawings and your notepads and everything.
You're not too far from it. Yeah. When I wrote the book initially, I had the basic skeleton of it. I knew that we were going to have this kidnapping, and I knew that it was going to be the inauguration. Initially, I had it 14 days in the future. So I'd given myself a lot of space. And then I thought it'd probably be better if I went to 9 days.
To squeeze the tension.
And then I thought, well, if I can do 9, why don't I see if I can do 5? So I had this very complicated spreadsheet, because I've got all these different characters. And they all were in different places. And I had to make sure that they intersected at the right time, which created, so we had a creative problem, which is writing the story. Then we had an analytical problem of how do I get all these people in the right places. And it was really fun as an author, first time. It's really lighting up your brain to do all these things and to have those things happen. So, so that was fun. And some of the surprises that you know, there's the villain in the book, who is a guy that puts us on a bit of a journey. His name's Arno Fare. And so I was writing about this in the prologue, where it's right before this kidnapping, and Arno is sitting in the car, and I have him look in the back seat, and for whatever reason, I just knew he was going to see 2 empty booster seats, but in between the booster seats was a bouquet of red roses, and I'm like, why the heck did I just write bouquet of red roses? And I started thinking about it, and then a really important part of the book and where his motivations are and everything else came out of just those little writing surprises that happen. So when those things happen, sometimes I just leave them in there because it opens up room for maybe something that I didn't expect. So I know some writers map out almost the entire book ahead of time. I'm not one of them. I've got a skeleton, and hopefully I know where the heart is, but outside of that, it's just keeping on flesh and trying to figure out where this thing moves.
So, in some of your research, I mean, you kind of, some of your FBI and some of your research about DC and things like that. I mean, did that like ring any bells? Did you get any visitors to your house who said, "Why are you looking these things up?"
Not yet. They're like where this plot goes. I'm wondering if I'm going to get a call because I'm because I was trying to think like how I can't get into what happens, but there's some like how would you do that? And then I thought of a pretty good idea of how you could do it, and then I'm like, boy, I hope nobody else thinks of that. Pretty bad.
I know. I was just like, oh, why does he know this?
Yeah. No, I've got a sick imagination that I really try my hardest not to show people because I would have very few friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well.
Yeah, we have to keep that in the inside voice.
Yes, I've heard from a lot of authors. They go places and they, murder mystery writers and things like that. They see these beautiful vistas and they'd be like, oh, this would be a great place to kill someone. And,
yeah.
So you're in good company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We just don't tell people what's going through our minds.
Right.
Yeah. It'd be this bad.
So here you are. I've seen a lot of authors at times, and some of them are ridiculously young and everything.
Where are you going with this?
Bear with me. And so I'm just going to say you're not, and so
ridiculously young.
Ridiculously young.
Right.
So I'm
Nice catch.
guessing you had maybe a different career path on the way. Was writing a book something that was that you always wanted to do? Was something that you had on your checklist somewhere? And what happened? How did it? Where did that fit in?
Yeah, it's a good question when you finally got to it.
Sorry for the minor perceived insult there.
I took creative writing in college, and I found the first thing I wrote. I was probably first grade or second grade.
Okay.
I wrote a thriller back then.
Oh.
But I think it's something that's always kind of been in my heart, something that I always wanted to try to do. So I took creative writing. I was offered to go to a graduate program, and I kind of thought that being a writer was not going to put food on the table. I equated artist and starving as the two things that go together, and so I thought it was more pragmatic not to do that. And I think sometimes when you say the word pragmatic, a lot of times what you're identifying is that there's a lot of fear there.
Yeah.
So I didn't do it. I wrote privately. I'd write little short things for myself or poems. A lot of times just because that's a way. Writing has always been a way for me to get at something from around the corner or from the outside that if it was something I was trying to deal with or whatever else and those were private, and I've thrown them all away. I promise, I've thrown them all away. I didn't do, at least my original jobs were not things that fulfilled me. I wonder if I had written earlier, if I would have enjoyed that and how that would have been. But I will say that my writing is better for having sold carpet in Iowa and South Dakota and Peoria, Illinois, for being a salesman all over the Midwest, for driving a camper across the country. I think when you attack writing later in life, there are some benefits to that you find out what your voice is maybe a little bit quicker, but you also, when you're talking about characters, there's a lot of people that I've crashed into that bits and pieces of them are part of the story. How people speak, having lived in the Midwest and in the Northeast and all over, I think it served me well, but it was a long wait, and maybe a little longer wait than I needed to have, because although I'm not ridiculously old,
you are not.
I am old.
You are not. Nobody ever said that. We have the tape.
Whatever.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think a richness of character, because I think that there are no throwaway characters in this book, and I've talked to other authors and everything. There's one that we know who works part-time in a supermarket just so she can see characters and kind of pull from her experiences there, and it kind of populates her brain.
Sure.
And everything, as far as enriching what then goes on the page later.
Yeah.
So I could see that. But so Iowa, yes, you
Iowa?
mentioned. So
Yep.
how do we get from Iowa to? I don't think I mentioned that you are now we're a New Hampshire author.
Yeah, I live in Ossipee. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we get from Iowa to Ossipee?
We get there through Peoria, Chicago, St. Louis, Pennsylvania, and finally to New Hampshire. So,
Okay.
we were living in St. Louis and lived there for 20 years in Belleville. For those of you that are watching this that are from Belleville and wondering why he doesn't say Belleville. And we opened up an insurance agency, which my wife and I did for 20 years. She doing most of the work, and me being the face of the agency, which, as you can imagine, we did really well.
All that sales.
And it's still there.
Okay.
It's still there. So our kids, our son went to Plymouth.
Oh, okay.
And our daughter went to Brooklyn, went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in Brooklyn, and they had no intentions of coming back to the Midwest. So we got on our horse and we came out. And I had spent my youth, I was a New Englander, and as a kid I was a camp counselor on Winnipesaukee.
Okay.
And so New Hampshire has always been my happy place.
Right.
So I was lucky enough to come home, is how I look at it. So we've been in the area for, I guess, 10 years or more.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And love Ossipee, love Conway.
Yeah.
We have to come up once a week to get our Delaney's wings and a cigar at Original Cigar Bar. So, yeah.
Well, I would say too that the book, even though there is obviously inauguration and everything, so there's definitely a DC flavor and everything, but it also very much feels New England, because you've got Vermont, you've got Boston. I believe there's snowstorms and things of that nature. So it definitely felt New England to me. And everything, especially there's one character who is the neighbor of the of him.
His name is Ray Buckmeyer, but he's got he's got too many rusted out trucks that are sinking into his property, so they call him Truckmeyer.
Right.
So Truckmeyer's from Vermont. Yeah.
Right. He seemed like a pretty typical neighbor, and I thought he was written very well, and just the hanging out but like not saying anything, and but they're best friends.
Right.
And everything. So if I remember, you kind of you finished this book in the great year of 2021, when all doors were open.
Oh, it was great. It was terrific. It was a great time to be me.
Right.
So I wrote this mostly during COVID. I did two things during COVID. I had gotten fat, and I wrote a book. And when it was, and my hope was that it could be traditionally published. Mostly because I wanted to see if my writing was good enough. And
oh, come on! You wanted the big money.
Well, I'm not gonna. We have good imaginations. Yes. Yeah, still waiting on the big money thing. Yeah. But so I sent it to an editor, and I asked him if he knew of anybody that knew of any agents,
Right.
Because it's so desperately hard to get an agent to pick you out of a pile.
Right.
And he said he didn't know anybody, and then he read the book, and he said wonderful things. He's Greg
Right.
Isles' editor, so he knows
Oh,
what he's
wow.
talking about. And he said, "Who do you want to work with?" So I was fortunate enough. He made an introduction to the agent who did Frank McCourt's Angela's Ashes and Olive Kitteridge, and she read the book and she said, "This is going to be our big book for 2021," and it was a very exciting time.
Right.
And then within a couple of weeks, she had sold the book to get some foreign deals to Germany and Hungary, and then it was just a matter of time waiting for the U.S. deal. That we waited 24 months and got probably upwards of 60 of the sweetest rejection letters you've ever seen from the biggest publishers in the world. And it was a time, maybe the book didn't resonate, maybe I didn't resonate, but for whatever was the reason, it just didn't seem to be happening. And it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me as far as learning the business. I got hooked up with a small press out of Michigan, and I was lucky enough to get a great publicist. And now I've learned the business a lot more, where hopefully we'll have some decisions we can make in the future with going traditionally published, but I don't feel like I have to now.
Right.
So.
Well, they've been great for you as far as talking from as a bookseller part. They have done great stuff for you, and I will say that was probably 2021 and thereabouts was probably the toughest time for authors. So somebody could have written the great American novel and they're probably still sitting on it somewhere. It was just
it was
time.
It was a little brutal. But I think what was fun, and to be honest, it really was fun to be at that the age where you get to reinvent yourself, and you have this idea, even the hope of something exciting happening.
Right.
I didn't expect. We were kind of on a glide path towards a very different life. So, so this is fun, and it certainly stirred things up a bit.
Right. So I think it's one of those things where something maybe, like you said, the rejection letters, but yet there's something really good that came out of it at the end. So, so we're very excited about it, and so this is not the end. You said Emma Noble is coming back.
Yeah.
And so there's something. So you're writing away, or
so Emma. So when. As I waited on sat on my hands waiting for my agent to come back with my $1 trillion deal, I wrote a book in the meantime, which I'm glad that I did.
Right.
So I have something to show for that waiting, and it's another Emma Noble book. This one is more, she gets the starring role, and it's called A Noble Sin. And A Noble Sin comes out. We're tentatively in May of 2025, so pretty quickly on the heels of this one.
Okay.
What I have to do is get off my tush and start writing the third one.
Number 3.
Yeah, which is, I've got a lot of noise up in my brain that I need to decipher a little bit. See if I can tune that station in.
Right. Yes, that's I'll call that the percolating.
Yeah.
Don't bother me, I'm percolating.
Does that work? my wife's sitting over there like, oh, I'll take anything if she can stop talking to me.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
So, well, I think that's all. I think that's crazy exciting, and we are very much looking forward to getting this out there. I mean, we've been talking to a lot of people, and anytime somebody brings it up to the counter, and I'm like, oh. And they kind of, jump back like, we were just buying a book. And I was like, it's not just any book and everything. And so anyway,
Well, I
it's
should just
kind
say
of
this.
fun.
I am so appreciative of all the help and support that White Birch has given me. It's it's a challenge when you don't really know anybody in the business, and sometimes you need a champion, and you guys have been that for us. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, but
Yeah.
it is exciting. I mean, it's exciting when a good book comes across the table. So we're looking forward to it, and that is going to be this Saturday,
Yeah.
on the 28th at 4 o'clock, and launch party. I don't know that it's going to be like woo. I don't know what party exactly means, but maybe
It's not going to be a woo
I
party.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, let me see. I hear you're a bit of a musician. What is your instrument of choice?
Well, I started as a singer, and then I taught myself how to play piano, and I'm a very poor guitar player.
Oh, I don't know that we could get a piano in the place.
Oh, well.
But,
We tried.
but maybe you could sing a few songs, or strum a few tunes, or whatever.
I think if you want to see a mad rush out of White Birch Books, put a guitar in my hands. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe we can get somebody else to do that.
So I know we're getting right to the end of things, and I usually ask for like 3 favorite books, but maybe we don't quite have time for 3. So maybe
Okay, good.
How about
good.
like 1?
Okay.
Or something you've read recently, or a favorite?
You know
or...
what I'll do? I'll give you a book that I studied before I started writing this one.
Oh, okay.
One of my favorite authors has always been Ken Follett.
Oh.
And because there's something about whether it's Pillars of the Earth or Key to Rebecca, he has this ability to get into the characters, and that it's also a great story. So it was Eye of the Needle, I think, was one of the first books that I read as a kid that got me excited about reading. And so I do go deep on things, so I spend a lot of time looking at how long are his sentences? Does he vary them? What kind of, when he, in a paragraph, how many times does he have dialogue or description or interiority? And I really just, I did kind of an autopsy on a lot of that book, and it's so rich with information that, so that was really helpful, and it's a great read.
Interesting to really dissect it like that.
Yeah,
And
I'm a nerd. Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay. No, that's a really interesting way to read when you go into it like that, because he's got, like you said, the big historical books, but I think did he start with the more of the thrillers?
They were all so he writes such a good thriller.
Yeah.
But they were historical thrillers,
right?
Too. So a lot of them were World War II in nature. At least those two. And I think he had. I couldn't get enough of him and Haley and Clavel, and there's so many great writers from back then that I enjoyed. So.
Right. Okay.
I'm glad that we only had to do one, because I would have been racking my brain for
That's
what
all
the
right.
other 2 that my homework was.
That's all right. I know. It kind of falls out of your head after a while. So that's it. So, well, thank you for coming here today. And for those of you, join us at the bookstore this coming Saturday at 4 o'clock. It was great having you here at Sun TV.
Thank you. Thanks, Sun TV, too.